Hey friends, Dean here with some exciting news to share. You can now buy us a coffee. That's right. You can help support independent content creators like us by becoming a member of the 3324 Green Room at buymeacoffee.com/3324. Our episodes will always be free and that will not change, but your support at buymeacoffee.com/3324 will help us continue to bring you the best in music and movie podcasting, in our humble opinion. As a Green Room supporter, you'll not only have our undying gratitude, but you'll also be able to vote on which episodes we record and receive other perks for as low as $3 per month. That's the price of a cup of coffee. There's absolutely no obligation, and nothing about the show will change. It's not going behind a paywall. Go to buymeacoffee.com/3324 for all the details. The link will be in the show notes of every episode as well. We'll see you in the Green Room. Sequels take a turn to the dark side as the Star Wars. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
Sequels take a turn to the dark side as the Star Wars universe expands and the saga continues in The Empire Strikes Back. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, the premier home, music, movies. We talk about it, we laugh about it, we geek out about it, we impersonate it.
I'm the only one who cries about it.
Yeah, right? some crying, some crying. No, a lot of emotional. It's the great, it's one of the great things about music and movies and art, right? It generates emotions, and everybody has a different perspective, Eric, right? And they different things about different parts of movies hit people in different ways because they're coming from it from somewhere different, and that's the beauty of art.
Absolutely.
Right.
And of course, personal experience, where you were, how, what happened as you watched it. Did you fall in love when you're watching this movie? Did you fall out of love when you were watching this movie? And et cetera, et cetera. So, it's just,
I was doing some other work this weekend and at this race, and this guy was there who has a podcast about obstacle racing, and he's interviewing it. He's interviewing all the competitors and participants, and he goes, "Yeah, let me talk to you about stuff too." So he did an interview, and oh, you have a podcast? I'm like, yeah, everybody has a podcast. But when I explained what 3324 meant, he's like, "Oh my God, that's the greatest thing." So for people that kind of get what 3324 means, that this is the podcast for you. Then if you understand what that means, then you found the right spot. Or if you're in Gen X, I think you're in the right spot too. Or if you wondered what it was like to be Gen X, you're in the right spot, right? This is for everybody. For the people that lived it, or the people that want to understand,
that want to live it,
and want a point of view from people that were there. I think that's a very unique perspective as well. That's what we provide.
Us Gen Xers are cool, man.
Yeah, we are the coolest. We're the baddest of the bad. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. That will make sure you get notified. And then continue the conversation with us. Find us on Facebook at 3324 Podcast, and you can continue the conversation. And Sean Grady seems like he's moving out. I don't know if he's in the process of moving at this point, but I did all of my work before we came on. Sean,
you were fixing the Millennium Falcon.
Sean's getting all his toys and all his action figures. He's showing us. That's what it is, man. He's got everything stored and ready to be shown. So
he's getting things at hand. Well, I'll kick it off. At hand, I have my stuffed Chewie, of course, and he actually has the sound card.
Nice.
So he's this is one of my favorite things. I've had Chewie forever. He's like my buddy. I love him. Yeah. Sean, do you have anything at hand? What do you have?
What do we got? We've got an AT-AT
Jesus.
That's huge.
Okay.
All right. We got the Slave 1.
Wow,
Nice.
look at that.
Okay.
Nice.
Those are big.
They're the legit. They're the real deal. And we got a little Hoth scene right here.
Those are the best.
Wow.
That's awesome.
The big set pieces where you could put all the action figures. And
oh yeah,
those are huge.
Sean is legit. He had all these things. If you go back and listen to our Star Wars episode, we kind of talk about this a little bit about figures and who had what. And Sean had the foresight to keep everything
in pristine condition, mind you.
Yeah.
Tauntaun.
Oh,
wow!
Is that the one with the you could press in the belly?
This is pre-guts. This is
I
got the one. You think they smell bad on the outside?
Pre-guts.
Yeah, pre-guts.
So if let's use that to introduce Mr. Sean Grady, our first guest of the evening. Thank you so much. Sean is part of the Drama from the Past endeavor. They do historical reenactments, particularly about the Revolutionary War era, and this is his go time. So, of course, we'll put a link to the show notes. You can check it out. Give him a follow on Instagram and Facebook too. That would be fantastic. And this week, kind of keep up with, even if if you're not in the area, you can still kind of keep up with what he's doing. So, welcome.
We're talking. We're not talking Star Wars history. We're talking American history.
There you go. War.
Yeah, so planet Earth.
Long time ago, but not in a galaxy far, far away.
That's correct.
But it was a long time ago. Also joining us, Nick Skywalker.
Yeah.
Nick Skywalker was in the first draft. By Lee
Skywalker
Brackett. He was in the Lee Brackett draft of the script, and then quickly got
originally Star Killer.
He got canned like tuna.
You drinking blue milk, Nick? What is in that?
No, this is just a blue glass.
That's a cool glass.
I was like, man, you pull out all the stops.
He's actually quite subdued tonight.
Have all the props, and he's going to have all the cool toys.
Yeah, Nick's going light tonight. He's got nothing. I got my mug. I got my Empire mug.
I didn't have my Jedi robe.
I should have worn my Jedi tunic. It's inside. Once a year, I should have brought it out. Nick Leshi, welcome aboard. Nick is the creator of the City of Kick blog, so there'll be a link in the show notes too. You can go check that out. All things entertainment and pop culture. He does a fantastic job with it. So welcome aboard, Nick, as well. So
happy to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, believe it or not, we actually did a Star Wars episode about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. With the same crew. Right?
Yeah.
We kicked it off with that one, and so now we're all back.
And didn't bother following it up. We just kind of did it, and we got so soured on the Book of Boba Fett that we're just kind of like, So I'm like,
my son asked me, I was like, what are you doing tonight? We're doing Empire Strikes. How come you're starting with that one? We did Star Wars 2 years ago. So go back and listen, please.
We're on the same schedule as the lunar eclipse, so the solar eclipse. So we'll get to Jedi, and
2044
at some point. Yeah.
If this is still going on in 40 years, and whoever is running it at that point, they'll do Return of the Jedi. It'll be in the public domain by then, possibly as well too. So they can. No. So yeah, we're talking about the Empire Strikes Back, which is the second of the original trilogy, but fifth in the saga.
Yes.
Oh, God. All right. We're just going to talk about the second. Yeah. We're talking about the second in the trilogy. So let's talk about the stats, and we'll get this going. This is another big subject, a lot to talk about. So this was released in May of 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner, not George Lucas. The story was by George Lucas. There was a lot of people that wrote screenplays. There was just a lot. I mean, for a movie that's so well beloved, there was actually a lot of issues with it behind the scenes. A $30.5 million budget. And then the box office take was $538 to $549 million return, but that's with re-releases. Yeah. I think on its original run, it was like $400 million. But then with all the re-releases, it added another, so that's the latest full box office take, and that's going to happen again. It's coming back into theaters. I know a theater near me is showing them all on May 4th. So
400 million in 1980. Wow,
is a boatload of money.
Oh yeah.
Worldwide, $401.5 million worldwide.
Still,
is a lot for 1980.
Yeah.
Big bucks. Suffice to say that we all saw it in the theaters at this point. We were all kind of there, right? I know Sean in our Star Wars one was young, but he did go. And I think, Nick, you said your pop took you also.
Yeah. And
right.
Star Wars movies were what made me fall in love with cinema. I mean, loved it. I mean, I was into science fiction and, TV, sci-fi, but there really wasn't science fiction on the big screen like Star Wars until these movies came along. Like, this was kind of that realism, that entertainment, like going back to the days of like Flash Gordon and everything. That's what inspired Lucas. And then even after this, like, imitators, but nothing of this quality. Like, I don't think, they made movies like they tried probably, Star Trek, the motion picture, and, but
they were the ones that came close. Star Trek came closest to but everybody looked like a pale imitator and they may have had the budgets, but for some reason no one could maximize the budget the way Lucas could, or with the people that Lucas had. Right? Yeah. And the collaborators were just so ahead of their time, or just that good, that the bang for their buck was amazing. And again, like we said in the Star Wars episode, I mean, it was taken, he took the material seriously too. He wasn't pandering to an audience, wasn't pandering to a kid's audience. Although as we get on, it would kind of tilt a little bit in that direction. But and especially this chapter probably is the darkest that everything gets, and that's out of the norm too. Normally with sequels, you buddy everybody up again and you send them off on an adventure that's similar, right, because you're not going to mess with the formula. Like Planet of the Apes kind of, they kind of kept it in that universe, and they switched out actors, but it was kind of in the same situations. You didn't really see, like Jaws 2. It's like, okay, the shark again and more shark. With this, I realized Guardians of the Galaxy 2 took a lot from this. Splitting up the group, splitting up the protagonists into two separate stories and having them go off on separate tangents and not converging until the end. So this was, Eric, kind of groundbreaking as far as tone for a sequel, because sequels are usually, more, like I said, more of the same.
Yeah.
And in story structure as well.
Yeah. I mean, I love this one. Lucas knew what he wanted to do. I think he had said that if Star Wars wasn't successful, he would have done some kind of a TV type sequel. I think it was Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I think we mentioned that in the first. That became a novel, expanded universe novel. But this was like he asked his old mentor to direct it, and he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to do the second Star Wars because he just thought it's going to be the same, But I think, in developing the script and going over it, it was just, things just became more inward and more personal with the characters, and we got to kind of dive in. And I love this one strictly from the standpoint of the fact that Lucas funded it himself. So it's truly, at this point, it's one of the biggest, independent movies ever made. And when you think about it from the standpoint of craft, compared to the first one had a lot of, really cool stuff in it. But most of that movie, I mean, you got to admit, half of it was because of the desert location, and they had this exotic locale that gave it that weight. But here it was like every scene seemed to have, it was handmade. It was built from the ground up. Like everything was a set, everything was models, all the effects were like 5 steps up from the original. These guys were really, ILM came together as a team. They really pulled it together. They, now it became an institution, and Lucas was in charge of that aspect while Irvin Kershner went off and, shot the movie. So it was, so from that point, like that's why I admire this film probably the most because of that. It just the work involved and the ingenuity that, like you said, like these guys were ahead of their time and still creating as they went along. So
yeah. Lucas didn't want to be beholden to a studio.
Yeah,
and he had the ability to bankroll this film, but like I said earlier, he would see a lot of the first draft of the script. Lee Brackett, who was she was a screenwriter, kind of from the old golden age of Hollywood. She had written stuff, but then she passed away in 1978, not long after submitting some stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff didn't get used. Some of it was hokey. Some of the you think dialogue was hokey. They said that this was even kind of more stilted. Lucas was developing a property called what would become Indiana Jones, and he had this guy Lawrence Kasdan working on it. He really liked the character work that Kasdan was doing, so he brought him on board for this. And we're going to talk about a lot of this. We'll get to it, but a lot of the stuff that is the Star Wars canon or was always supposed to be was not in any of these drafts. About Anakin and Vader were two separate characters in these early drafts. So there wasn't, there's this whole thing from the beginning that this was his grand plan. And even in this film, obviously there are lapses that betray, let's put it out there, Sean, the Luke and Leia kiss.
Oh yeah.
Kind of betrays them saying that there was some master plan for this. Right.
Yeah. I remember that coming to mind even as a kid. When they find out that they're siblings, I was like, but wait, they kissed. And my daughters were just watching it. And they're like, they're siblings. It's like, yeah,
they're twins like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Luke was hot for Leia too, so it wasn't just like a kiss type thing. He was kind of in,
he kind of
like Yeah, he does the Chewbacca lean back after the chess game.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was. Let the Wookiee win. And Mark Hamill did that. So there's a lot of those inconsistencies. We're not going to belabor them, but I just want to kind of put it out there that this was a very organic and in the trenches endeavor. They were writing this thing, they were rewriting it, right? They were working through it. There wasn't this big manuscript that was pre-planned, although Lucas had done a lot of work on it. It wasn't to the extent, there was a lot of different things. So many things were different that they ended up refining, which is good. That's a good thing, and that I think that's what's best is when people are able to take Lucas's ideas, Nick, and refine them, because left to his own, he needs people to say no to him, and that's that's when he got into trouble with the prequel trilogy. Is no one? There's no one there. But when you have people to whittle stuff down and sand out the rough edges and refine it, that's when you get a masterpiece like this.
I think that you put it right. He needs people to kind of say no to him a little bit, but he also has great instincts. This is all from his imagination and obviously with the other writers as well, but he kind of knows what works, and he knows that he wants to make it real, but also that pulpy fun. The mythology, you've heard a lot of people talk about that, how he was inspired by Joseph Campbell and things like that. But the one evidence that his ear is not right for the dialogue, the great ad lib that Harrison Ford has when Leia goes, "I love you," right? They were going back and forth. I think Erwin Kershner shot like a bunch of different scenes, like just ad lib, right? And then the one that made it was, "I know," and Lucas hated that. I think he was like, he's legendary. He's like, that's not Han Solo. He wouldn't say that, So that's evidence of.
But it is.
But it is Han
totally
Solo.
Fits. It's so in the character. So fits.
And funny enough, Harrison Ford didn't want to say one of the scripted lines was, "I'll take care, I'll be back," or words to that effect. And he didn't want to say that because at that point he did not want to continue doing Star Wars. He felt that this enough was enough. So he actually wasn't comfortable. Like, that's kind of putting me on the hook to kind of come back, which is odd. Eric, I was thinking about this today, Eric. So much is written about that, how Harrison Ford he wanted Han Solo to be killed off. He felt that the character did everything that he could.
Yeah.
Right. Yet he goes and starts making Indiana Jones films where the character doesn't really change much at all. He kind of just goes from one adventure to the other, where Han Solo had more of an arc. He was a smuggler. He fell in love. Like, there was more of an arc in Han Solo's story than there was in Indy. I'm not saying Indy is not a great thing, but Indy is kind of episodic and serial and one adventure to another. And he doesn't really grow or change,
True.
So why he was complaining about this and then went right into a franchise where there really wasn't an arc.
I honestly, I think Harrison Ford's full of shit.
Okay.
I mean, most of the stuff that he comes out. I mean, he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
As long as the paycheck's there, and really, it's a job for him, and that's really. And he's very professional, and he's very, everybody loves working with the guy, and he said, but over the years, he's not the fan. Like, he doesn't get into the stuff that he does. Yeah. Like, he does it well. He does the job, but then he moves on. And, I think the only, he was more, I think slightly more enthusiastic about Indy, because I guess maybe there was something about the character, perhaps the things that he does in the past. And I don't know, maybe that appealed to him more than the space cowboy type thing. But I don't know. You're right.
Maybe that it was his own. Maybe that these were his own films too.
It is a good point. Which is when Force Awakens came out, I was like, I knew, like when they as soon as they signed Harrison Ford on, I'm like, he's going to die.
He's out. He's in and out.
And then when Lawrence Kasdan came on board to help write it, I'm like, yeah, it's done, because it was his idea to kill him off, and Harrison Ford was like, yeah, let's go. And
short timer.
Lucas wouldn't let him, so
short timer. Before we start talking about the film, just what Irvin Kershner, like I said, I think he was George Lucas's professor in film school or a mentor of some type. Like Eric said, Kershner really wasn't interested, but he said, "I'll do it as long as I have full control. I don't want you lording over me, telling me what to do." If you look at Irvin Kershner's filmography, he hadn't really done much of anything, so it was an odd choice. But okay, Kershner's like, "Leave me alone. Let me make the film." And George Lucas at that point was like, "All right," because he was kind of burnt out. Being holding the keys to the kingdom and having all that power, and it did take a drain on him being the director of Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. He's like, okay. So then what happens? Irvin Kershner starts over, slow snail pace, budget overruns. The producer Gary Kurtz was almost fired on Star Wars, and Lucas convinced him to keep him on Empire, and he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. So now Lucas shows up on the set. He goes, "What the hell's going on here? Like, this is like a mess." So he had to start, kicking some tail and getting things going again, Nick.
Yeah, and what do you think was the biggest expense in the budget? Can any of you take a guess? No, it was the sets, building the sets, and the studio burnt. So they had to rebuild all the sets again. They had to go to Norway or wherever they went, where all the snow was. So that's one of the reasons why Lucas embraced the green screen technology of the prequels. But it was just a nightmare from a producing angle. He thought he was going to take it easy by not directing, and as a producer, he was self-funding this. He had to go back to 20th Century Fox and be like, okay, let's renegotiate because I need more money. The bank's not going to give it to me, So it was
he was going to lose the film. His bonds weren't being backed. He needed more money, couldn't get more bonds, and he didn't want. The film would have fell into Fox's hands.
Yep.
They got it all straightened out. So
They did.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes. Sean, does this film have one of the most quoted lines of all time?
The most quoted line of all time?
Yes. No, I am your father. Is that
that one? The wrongly quoted. The wrongly.
Well, everyone says, "Luke, I am your father," but it's no, I am your father.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got great lines.
Do you say that? Do you say that to your kids ever? No, I am your father.
No.
Together we can rule the galaxy.
I do it all the time.
Oh, see, Nick does it
all the time.
Oh, see,
whenever I was giving them a bath when they were younger, like, I am your father. I think they heard it from me before they heard it in the movie.
Yeah, like Sean, like you said, it's often misquoted. Everyone says, Luke, I am your father. Well, it's close enough. I mean, it's close enough. I think, but but there was a lot of secrecy about that.
Yeah.
They didn't even want to tell David Prowse, who only plays Vader
Poor
in the costume.
guy.
Like, this guy's a blabbermouth. And if we tell him, he's going to tell everybody.
Yeah.
So they had him say Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is your father. And no one knew about it until, most of them until they saw the film. So it was a really great turn. At the time, everybody was blown away. When we saw it in the theater, it was like, holy, like, what?
Yeah.
Again, another curveball that we're not, usually the villain is a detached guy, right?
Yeah.
He's a mustache twisting villain that kind of always gets kind of subverted, and I'll come back. And it's like, no, this is the guy's father, Sean, a question.
Yeah.
When did Vader know this? Because this takes place 3 years after the events, after the destruction of the Death Star. So at what point do you think, or do you feel like, because he didn't know who Luke Skywalker was in Star Wars, he didn't know his name. He was just, as far as Star Wars goes, he was just this random pilot. And all Vader said, the Force is strong with this one, but he didn't know anything about a name. He knew Obi-Wan Kenobi, but didn't know this person. So when do you think this information kind of came to him? And a postcard from Luke. Hey, Pop.
Yeah, I mean, he has that he has that discussion with the Emperor, and they talk about Anakin Skywalker. It kind of, because I was watching and I'm like, oh, this is, and then you get the old Emperor's face, which was, I appreciate. I forgot how ugly the Emperor really. I mean, the Emperor's still ugly. Anyway, when did he? I think he. I don't know. Maybe that's maybe just moments. I don't know. It's hard.
I mean, the Emperor Emperor mentions Skywalker by name in Empire, right? He says,
right.
So is that is? Do you think he had a feel? Since he had a Force sense, do you think they felt something was going on
when they have the encounter?
Well, the crawl says it. He's obsessed with finding Skywalker, and Vader calls him by name himself. I'm sure Skywalker is with him. Before he even has that little conversation with the Emperor. So why is he obsessed with finding Luke?
Skywalker's son cannot become a Jedi, right? That's that line.
I think perhaps he knows that Luke is out there somewhere. Of course, we didn't know this at the time, but it was one of those, sort of weird happenstances that, you're just like, but it kind of, if you really think back on it, it's like, well, it's kind of giving it away, I think, a little bit too, because why is he so obsessed? And then you, after multiple viewings, you're looking back and you're saying, why were we so surprised when he said that I am your father? But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just, I think Vader, if you really want to have some kind of an explanation or theory, I think Vader had his own agenda. I think he wanted to kill the Emperor. I think he, he wanted Luke to be his apprentice, and I think he meant what he said when he was trying to draw Luke to the dark side. And I was
just going to ask that. Yeah.
I definitely think that was the case. He would have taken him to the Emperor, but in the hopes that Luke and him would probably kill him, and then move on from there. So so that's my guess. I don't know.
So Nick, you don't think that was lip service that he was saying, as father and son, we can rule, No,
I think he was legit, because you find out in the later movies or the prequels, whatever, like, it's that power of two. Like, the Sith have to have, it's like a dynamic of two, right? There's a leader and an apprentice. So, Vader should have known, hey, if we turn Luke, I'm out.
Someone's got to go,
right? I think that's what he was kind of saying. He's like, it's you and me, and we'll get him. But that's the one thing sometimes, like, where it's like this jump between episodes. I hated that, like, especially with the prequels, where you went from, like, you kind of skipped the whole Clone Wars, like, so there is that gap. So who knows? There's all these other adventures in that period that could have happened. But I assume after what happened in the first Star Wars movie, he's like, who is this person? And he probably sensed that he was strong in the Force. And they investigate and they find out, oh, he came from Tatooine. Oh, he's a Skywalker. Oh,
hanging out with Obi-Wan.
Yeah. So the one thing is, like you said, how do we not put the pieces together? I mean, you look back now and you see when Obi-Wan told Luke, he had that little side glance, it's like, he killed your father, It's like, how do we not know that he was lying?
That's the ticket. That's the ticket. He killed him.
Interestingly enough, though, with all the tampering, I'll just jump in with that. It's like it was like they did it like 3 different times. I didn't realize that when the special editions came out, the dialogue was changed each time. Like, now they put Ian McDiarmid as that you see in Return of the Jedi, which I thought was a great thing. I like the continuity there. But he says something completely in the latest, tampering. He said the young rebel that destroyed the Death Star. I have no doubt that this is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. Whereas before the Emperor said he is, Luke Skywalker is our, whatever. So I don't know why they keep messing with that. I don't think it's necessary, but I feel like that maybe it was an attempt to kind of bring back the mystery for people who didn't know, if anybody didn't know that he was, for younger viewers or something. So to kind of walked it back a bit, I think a little bit there with the Emperor. I think that was kind of cool.
Did you all believe it when you first saw it on the big screen? Did you walk into the movie knowing that was the line?
It was earth shattering.
We didn't want to believe it.
Yeah, I didn't want to believe it.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it until I saw it on the big screen. So
my dad pointed out, though, that Vader means father in German. He knew that. So he knew that Darth Vader was even in the first one. He was not surprised at all when we saw it. He goes, "Yeah, I knew it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" No, he's not this fun. What are you talking about? And my dad's like, "No, because they, Encyclopedia Brown, we call him. He went on to tell me this, and I didn't know that. So that was, I'm like, wow, okay, so maybe he is. So now, of course, we know, but
so." A lot of great sequences in this film. As Sean showed us, he has an AT-AT walker.
Oh yeah,
he's got the AT-AT, and he's got the little Hoth scene. So again, this was the opportunity. There it is. Look at that thing. Did you make any stop motion films with that when you were young?
I was not talented enough.
I would absolutely be doing that.
Yeah, here's the driver.
Nice.
There you go.
Donovan from Last Crusade.
Yeah.
General Veers.
So
that's a different figure, but yes,
different guy, but same intent.
Yeah.
We've got a lot. Star Wars had the desert planet, so now we've got Dagobah, which is like the swampy planet, and we've got Hoth, which is the ice planet. So we get to see, and he did up the ante. He there was some of those stop motion effects in Star Wars, but he used it, to great effect here with the Tauntauns and even the AT-ATs, where some of those were stop motion too. And in watching it, I'm like, I didn't mind it. Sean, maybe because you watched the original version of it too, without it being cleaned up. I kind of liked the throwback of it. I liked that it's of its time, that they didn't try and fix something that was perfectly okay at the time. That's what the technology was, and they were doing the best they could with it.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
I mean,
some of my favorite parts of that movie are Hoth and the AT-ATs, and I remember going, how are they going to defeat these things? Like they blew my mind then. I mean, I was young, granted. But I was blown away by it. I was like, wow, this is what will they think of next? Like the how are they going to defeat the Empire? Like these things are unstoppable. And I know primitive, but it worked for me. I mean, I was young, and it still works now. I enjoyed the throwback, and thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and the even the Star Destroyers got a size upgrade. Into like super Star Destroyers. And
love that.
Either you say the Executor or the Executor. Some people say it one way or the other.
Right.
Which is just a massive. It's like I read a thing. It's like 11 miles long. Like in its real construction, it's 11 miles long. That's like larger than some cities. A lot of cities.
Yeah.
That thing is just massive. So they, he was able to, let some of the slack out on the leash, Lucas, and kind of make some good decisions like that of like these AT-ATs, just a really cool thing. Like I was reading, like it was almost like a almost like an allegory on the Vietnam War of the Empire having to invade this planet, but they didn't have the right equipment. The AT-ATs weren't meant for that, but that's what they were using what they had,
Right.
and it was kind of, it was almost an allegory for the way things were in the Vietnam conflict of the invading forces not being prepared to engage the enemy on a territory they weren't familiar with, and they didn't have the right equipment. I thought that was very interesting. And also, Irving Kershner said, I wanted the rebels to all have American accents and the bad guys to have English accents as a throwback to the Revolutionary War, the rebels versus the imperial forces. So there's a little bit there. On Hoth, Luke gets the visitation from the Force Ghost of the very begrudgingly Alec Guinness, who didn't want to do any of this stuff, right. But you throw 1/4% of the gross, which is millions of dollars,
more money than he ever made.
The guy did about 4 hours worth of work. He did it all in one day.
Yeah,
and he got 1/4% of the gross, which that doesn't sound like anything, but take 1/4% of $400 million for about 5 or 6 hours work. And
any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah. And so he makes his appearance to Luke and tells him he's got to go to the Dagobah system. And I gotta say, Nick, in rewatching, I haven't watched Empire in full. It's one of those ones you catch. I'm actually astounded by the Dagobah set. Yeah, I think that was I'm watching. I'm like, this thing looks massive, because I don't recall seeing like retreaded areas. Sometimes you can kind of tell, they reuse this. The swamp, the X-wing in the water, just all the different the trees and just the set design, Nick. And watching it in reassessing, I'm like, it really is something amazing.
That's where the budget went. It's like, you think, special effects. No, it's all these.
We need more leaves. We need more leaves.
And here's a bit of trivia. Part of that scene was filmed somewhere else because he had to go back and reshoot.
I know where.
Lucas's swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the ship kind of goes up, incredible. I mean, it looks different. And to this day,
it looks genuine. It looks genuine to me.
When Luke comes there and goes, "There's something familiar about this place. Like, I feel like I've been here before." I never felt like any movie has kind of explained that line. There's a bunch of lines like that where I went into it thinking it's a sequel, same adventure. It's just, different settings. But no, they turn everything around. It's like you have the big action sequence at the beginning of the movie, and then you've got these like more subtle, quiet moments with Yoda and philosophical, and it's wonderful. And all these surprises and twists. And of course, I Am Your Father, the biggest twist of all, where that, waiting for the Return of the Jedi, we were all like, was it real? Is it, and then is Luke going to turn to the dark side? Like, this is something that hadn't been done and it ends on a cliffhanger of all things, right? Where you're like, what? Well, that's it.
I really felt that this one really lent itself to that vision that Lucas had originally of doing this sort of chapter serial thing. Mm-hmm. But I felt, because this movie was just that much more, a little bit more mature in the character development, it was just more, you felt like every pitfall, every escape that they made, every, great set piece that they have, the glorious shot of the Falcon, for example, like flying through the clouds and doing the loop-de-loop when Leia's communing with Luke, and we got to go back, and the music kicks in, and it's so grand and it's so thrilling. And then you realize it's like, but nothing really happens in this movie. Like the big, like you pointed out, Nick, the big battle is at the beginning. So that's the original Star Wars right there. And then the rest of the movie is these characters just in these situations. They're on the lam. Luke is training, and it's just, you get to know them better. It gives you time to breathe. But every escape in this film felt earned. And you really felt like it was, you felt satisfied by the end of it, Yeah,
everything is tinged with darkness. Like all the scenes are not, it's not like a lot of, even when they get away from something, it's not really a happy moment. It's just kind of like they're barreling into another problem.
Yeah.
Right. They escape the asteroid and the thing that's in it, the worm.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're back facing the Star Destroyer. So they go from the frying pan back into the fire, or the fire into the frying pan. Either way,
And the main characters take a beating.
Oh yeah,
big beating.
They all do.
Pieces. Han Solo's frozen. Luke loses a hand. I mean, they all.
It's rough.
Yeah, let's
come out unscathed.
Since you brought that up, we got to talk just a little bit about Mark Hamill. He looks significantly different in this film. And it is because in 1978, I think it was, he was in a pretty significant car accident. Smashed his nose in, ripped up his cheek. They actually had to take some flesh from his ear to rebuild his nose. They weren't sure what was going to happen with him. And he does not look like the same person in Star Wars. There was rumors that the Wampa scene was written because to address that, but not really. It just turned out to be a happy accident that having that Wampa scene, have him get slapped in the face. They don't explain it, they don't say anything, but it's just kind of there. But so physically, Mark Hamill looks different.
Yeah,
he does not look like the same farm boy that was on Tatooine. He actually has a different look because of what happened to him. Now, Dagobah. We only ever see one inhabitant of this planet. And in watching Empire Strikes Back again, I got the impression that this inhabitant was going a little stir crazy. taking everything, you have to take out all the other appearances that we saw him in the prequels and whatever. Right. You have to take all that out. And if you just look at the scenes with him and Luke on Dagobah, he seems like this guy is stir crazy. That he's been alone too long because he's just rummaging through things. He's enamored by a flashlight, but he's had lightsabers. He's had duels. He seems like he's like almost a little loopy. Like it's more than eccentric, Sean. It seems like he's a little bit more detached from life.
Yeah, he's definitely like he's an ass kicker in the prequels. He's and in Empire, he's just about done. I agree with you. And I remember when I first heard his voice, I'm like, that's Grover.
Fozzie.
Sesame Street.
Fozzie.
That's
Grover and Fozzie.
The same guy. But I was like, wait, why does he sound like, And
mine. Where Dean, we talked about that before we saw it, because remember we used to, you saw pictures of Yoda in People magazine or Time magazine or whatever. So they kind of revealed him before. They should have kept it a surprise, but they kind of saw. But we were wondering, like, we knew that he was a puppet. We knew that Frank Oz was going to be the puppeteer. So we were like, well, what's he going to sound like? I remember having that conversation with you. Yeah. And then when we saw it, we did see it together, I think, the first time. Were you disappointed? Were you disappointed?
I thought Fozzie Bear.
Yeah.
I thought it was like waka waka,
the briefest moment.
It was too close. Like Frank Oz, his range is Miss Piggy, Grover, and Fozzie, and they all have the same vocal timbre.
Yeah.
He did refine, like over the years, he did kind of quote unquote find the voice of Yoda. He did kind of refine it a little more. But in the beginning, when he's kind of yelling and stuff, it's very Muppety, when he's like pulling and yanking stuff, and it's like very, very Muppet Show. But he's got, I gotta say something. He's got himself a cute little rear end.
Yes.
When he's bent over and he's rummaging through, you see that little Yoda bottom? Oh, come on, Sean,
that.
You know it. Sean,
I love that.
I can't. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah, next time you watch it, his little rump.
Watch that little the part you're talking about. I'm like,
come on, the little Yoda rump. How can we not talk about it?
But what a fantastic way to introduce this wizened, old, wise, like character, like to start it out that way. I don't know why he was acting that way. I don't, to your point, Dean, as him being stir crazy, that could very well be the case. I just think he was just kind of like throwing Luke off. The real question is,
he doesn't really act that way after that.
Right.
Once he reveals himself, he's like, okay.
He kind of winds up a little bit. It's like, oh shit, I got to be a Jedi. Yeah.
Then he's just straight on like Fu Manchu, like serious, the real question is how come he didn't recognize R2?
Could have been another mech droid.
They've crossed. I mean, we get to that, of course, but you look back on it now, and it's like you're looking for just some kind of little sign that maybe there's some recognition there.
Doesn't even let him into the.
I couldn't find it. Yeah.
You stay outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I really liked about this is what I noticed about the sets on Dagobah in that scene when Luke comes into Yoda's hut and makes him the little stew or whatever it is. It's still raining outside the hut, and you see the rain coming down. That's like the devotion to creating the atmosphere. And I noticed it when I was watching it today. I'm like, yesterday, I'm like, wow, like it's just like all that's they really kind of devoted themselves to create. It could have been just a very simple scene of indoors and the rain stopped, whatever. No one's paying attention anyway. But if you look, it's still coming down in the background with the little holes or whatever. I think what it was is he might have been going a little loopy, and then once he realized that it was Skywalker's, oh shit, I got to get my Jedi shit together. Like I got to start, I got to straighten up. I might be able to get away with this with other people that crash land here. I can play the homeless card. Yeah. But I felt like not with a Jedi. I got to kind of, I'm almost embarrassed that he saw me like this.
I felt like he knew. Like I don't know if Ben had already sent him his little Force Ghost message or something, because there's that point where he just puts aside the facade. And he's like, I can't train him, right? He's like,
but then he's like, Yoda, you seek Yoda. Like he was, he's still like talking in the third person type thing.
Well, that's his way.
Right? My will. And he starts cackling like.
He was. Sean, he was gaslighting Luke. He's like, I'll take it. Yeah, it's like, when are we going to meet this Yoda? And he's like, soon. Whatever. And meanwhile, he's there. He's like playing tricks on him. He's like for his own amusement.
He's testing.
Was he testing him? Was he testing Luke? What should have been?
Luke's kind of a whiner. He's always been a whiner.
Oh my God, yes, yeah.
One of the
I'm glad you said it first, Sean, because I wasn't going to be the one to say.
He's always been that way. Yeah, Luke has always been in pain. But one of the creepiest scenes, probably on celluloid, is when Luke is like, I'm not afraid. And Yoda's eyes go dead. And he's like, you will be. You will be. Like, holy shit, his little craggy teeth. Yeah. You see his craggy teeth, and he's like, you will be. I'm like, holy shit, like Yoda, like, what the hell are you gonna do to this? Like it's so dark. Like, you're expecting a fun-loving sequel, swashbuckling, swinging, all this stuff, and you're not getting. You're getting this haze of doom or impending danger in every scene. Like I said, there's not one like happy scene. Everything's got this feeling of foreboding, Nick. Right? It's like kind of I don't know if part of it is it's got to be the way they shot it. So maybe Irvin Kershner needs to get some credit, because it's it's some of it's in the dialogue, but a lot of it's just the feeling of it. It just kind of has a heavy feeling. And
as much as you mock, the puppetry.
I do mock. I don't mock the puppetry.
No, because it's like
the puppetry was fantastic.
People at the time thought it's so realistic. Some of his expressions, especially when he's lifting up the X-wing, and some of those line deliveries, where they thought part of the special effects was they took somebody's real face and like computer merged it or did something to it, and it's just that realistic. But it's dark. It's like when he goes into the cave,
I love that scene.
And it's like, don't bring your weapon, but he brings his weapon. So then he ends up having to use his weapon in the vision that he saw. Dark stuff, cutting his hand later. And, it's just,
he goes, what's in there? He goes, only what you take with you.
Yeah. And he takes his lightsaber.
Lines are so, it's like you say, the at this point, we still don't know jack shit about the Force and how powerful are these beings. Everything is still a myth at this point. The legend of the Jedi and what is Luke getting himself into here? We don't know, his journey yet. Like what's entailed,
right?
And that's what's so great about it. And people like Abrams tried to recreate that with his mystery boxes and Force Awakens to no avail, because they didn't mean anything. These things are just even though they're not necessarily fulfilled but they still lend a like you say, a sense of foreboding and a sense of like drama to it. So it worked. It worked on that level.
Yeah. One last tidbit about Yoda. Sean, do you know what the original concept for Yoda was?
I may have forgotten by this point.
They wanted to get a monkey and put a mask on him.
I didn't know that.
I never heard that.
Yes, I
never heard that.
I heard
they were going to use a monkey and put a mask on him, and they're like, "This is never going to work because the monkey's going to keep taking the mask off."
Okay.
Aside the fact that you would have a monkey jumping around, I don't know if it's going to be a chimpanzee or. I'm serious.
Wow. I guess you can
that could have sunk the film.
Yeah.
If they had a monkey with a mask on.
Well, what really blows my mind is the fact that Lucas made a comment on the making, like the Empire of Dreams doc. I think he said something to the effect, like, we didn't want this to be like we didn't want Yoda to be he'd had to work because I didn't want the Muppet Show. I didn't want it to be like, and yet Return of the Jedi comes out and the entire first 20 minutes of that movie is nothing but puppets.
Right. Yeah.
So you really literally felt like you were in the Muppet Show with that one. So I don't get him, like his way of thinking. Sometimes he says stuff and then
I think he just says,
and then he contradicts himself like all the time. So yeah,
I think too, it's the reaction. He wanted to do his own movie, be in control, tell the story his own way. Don't let the studio interfere. But then I think the reviews, I mean, everybody's now like, oh, it's the greatest of the Star Wars. But back then it had mixed reviews. So it was too dark, not kid-friendly enough. So you see Return of the Jedi, it's kind of like a correction.
It's a return.
They're trying to remake that first one. And what I loved about Empire was there was no sand planet. It was so different from what you had seen before. And then every other Star Wars movie after it had to have a scene on Tatooine, had to have the same kind of destroying the Death Star. It's like just rehashing.
That was just that's the sequel that you would have expected for the second one. Is like another Death Star. Let's take a go around. Sean, I think it's time for your favorite part, the bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about again. Lucas expanding the universe and these bounty hunters. Like Vader hires bounty hunters to find Han Solo, to capture him, or he wants to he wants to use him as eventually he wants to use him as a test subject to encase him in carbonite.
Yep.
So he can capture Luke, encase him in carbonite because it'll be easier that way, and then bring him to the Emperor. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. Of course, you can't rely on stormtroopers for that. So you gotta go to Craigslist or somewhere, and you gotta put an ad out for the bounty hunters. And you get an assemblage of bounty hunters that none of them are named.
Nope.
But we would all come to know that we would come to know their names either through the figures or
figures.
Like, these would be beloved, IG-88, Bosk. And then of course he's never mentioned, but of course Boba Fett, who was introduced earlier in the Star Wars Christmas special, but we get to see him in the flesh. The guy barely does anything, to be honest. He doesn't do a whole lot, but he became the most beloved, badass, part of the Star Wars universe. How did that happen, Sean? For a guy that had 5 lines.
If the action figure came out before Empire, I remember getting that action figure, was sending away for it, and I'm like, who's this guy? He wasn't in the movie, like Star Wars. Like, that's Boba Fett, and I had a bunch of them because we had all the proofs of purchase. So when I saw
eating a lot of cereal, Sean.
Like the Kenner, you cut the little thing out of the back, you sent it in, you got the figure. I mean, for me, that's how I got introduced to Boba Fett. I didn't see the Star Wars Christmas special.
Lucky you.
Not many people did. Yeah,
I've seen it. No, I've seen it since.
Yeah,
but it's a total piece of crap.
The few, the unlucky.
But and he was in the cartoon of that. So
which is probably the best part. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So for me, it was the action figure. I had the action figure, and then I saw him. And he doesn't look like the action figure, at all. Like, the colors are a little bit different. But I was excited to see him. and he doesn't do a ton even in the movie, but he's just got a presence about him that's cool, calm, and then I think he gets done dirty in Return of the Jedi. I do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think Eric, maybe it's because he's smarter than the other bounty hunters, right? Because there's that whole scene with the Falcon when the hyperdrive doesn't work again, and they're in the middle of like all these Star Destroyers. So what does Solo do? He attaches himself to the back of the Star Destroyer. He's like, we're going to just float away with the garbage, which is a brilliant Han Solo-esque idea.
Great plan. Yeah.
He pulls away. Who else do we see in the garbage but Boba Fett? So I think that's kind of I think that kind of elevated him. We didn't see Boba Fett doing anything. We just saw his ship follow. It's kind of like, well, all right, this guy's a kind of a cut above the other bounty hunters.
And when Vader is going down the line, right, he pauses and he's like, "No, this is great." Right. So that line too, like we use our imaginations to fill in the blanks. So we're like, "What's the history? What did he do? How does Vader know him? And why is he warning him? Like that's the kind of stuff that just filled our
Why
dreams,
would Darth Vader even need to hire a bounty hunter?
Yeah,
right.
That was the biggest question. Like, why would? It's odd, but you don't realize at this point that bounty hunters are such a big deal in the Star Wars universe, where they become, and even like, but like to Dean's point, Boba Fett just anticipates it. And it's just
brilliant.
I think they kind of like alluded to the idea of him being sort of like a Clint Eastwood type where, Clint Eastwood didn't have to do anything either. He just stands still and he's a badass, so I could think kind of getting that idea of him,
let's give Jeremy Bulloch some love, the actor behind the Boba Fett mask. And, I'm going to go with it. What's that?
You know who the original voice of Boba Fett is? That Jason Wingreen, that actor?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was in All in the Family. He was I think he's one of Archie's friends, and he's in
bartender.
He is a bartender, and then he's in that episode, A Stop at Willoughby of the Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone?
He
played the conductor.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Let me backpedal a little bit. The best thing about the Star Wars Holiday Special is that Harvey Korman is a part of the Star Wars universe. That's the best thing about the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Is B. Arthur.
Yeah.
But Harvey Korman is part of the Star Wars universe. So I got, if you're a child of the 70s, you can't ask for much more than that. Harvey Korman, come on. And B. Arthur, Golden Girls. I mean, Jefferson Starship is part of the Star Wars universe. That's a conversation for another.
And I think I said this in the Book of Boba Fett, and I'm convinced. I'm so totally convinced that's exactly why Favreau is casting all these comedians in the new stuff.
Homage to the
homage,
because he loved that special.
We're gonna have to do an episode on that.
Yeah,
so, we should. Well, there's got to be a way we all watch it together at the same time or something, and kind of roast it like a mystery science theater type thing. Boba Fett is just kind of he became the badass and. Again, I'm not a fan of going back. I like the original. I like the original performance by the guy that by Jason Wingreen that did the. We didn't need Tamora Morrison to go back.
No.
I don't need it for continuity. I don't need it. I want the original performance. That he's fine. He's no good to me. Dead. It's like I'm fine. I like that performance. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, continuity. Then they should correct Han Solo's pronunciation of his name. All the different pronunciations in Empire. Han. Even Leia calls him Han. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's Han.
Han.
I think it was Billy D. Williams that kind of set that in motion.
Thank you for bringing him up because that was my next subject. Is who is cooler than Billy D. Williams?
Nobody.
You certainly belong among us in the clouds.
It's
with us in the clouds. I mean,
Colt 45.
Goddamn, Billy.
Let's go have a Colt 45 together.
Billy D. Williams is the king of cool. He actually auditioned for Han Solo. Back in the day, also. A couple of other big name actors at the time, like Yaphet Kotto, and a couple other ones auditioned for Lando. Yaphet Kotto was like, "I don't want to do it because he's probably going to get killed." He didn't know much about it. He was probably going to get killed off, and I'm not going to really have a career, after that or do anything. So, Billy D. Williams is just smooth as silk. He embodied that
Yeah.
That gambler, smooth talker, kind of always has an angle, and Bespin, Cloud City, the gas mining is another angle that he has, and we find out that Han Solo is not the original owner of the Millennium Falcon, that he wanted, that Lando was the original owner of it. I love his cloak.
Yeah.
I love his color scheme with the light blue, and he just Lando. I'm Lando Calrissian. I'm the administrator of this facility. There he is. There's Lando.
I lost the cape. The cape is no longer.
You got to get a piece of cloth. You got to restore that.
I could probably make that. Yeah.
If you think about it, these are colors we've never really seen in Star Wars before. Like, right? These like different shades. Like, yeah, that's awesome. And it's also Lobot. What's the deal with that guy? We gotta talk about Lobot.
Sean's getting Lobot right now.
Yeah, Lobot. There he is. There he is.
He's like activating him, like he's like sleeping in his chamber, and you're like, wait.
He's kind of giving him directions, and
I'm sure somebody wrote probably a whole novel based on that one character. You know,
I hope so. Adventures of Lobot.
See for 5 minutes, but yeah, that's Lando is just he. Did you think that he was going to betray them? I mean, did you see it coming, or were you surprised?
I didn't see it coming, but Leia apparently did, right, Nick? Leia just was like, "This, there's something with this guy. There's something with." And this guy.
I mean, even Han Solo from the beginning, he's like, "I don't trust him, but we gotta trust him." So I mean, he kept saying it over.
I don't trust him, but he's my friend.
And then he betrayed him, But he's so likable. So in the end, you don't doubt that he's back, and you really it's not like you're thinking, oh, he's going to betray them again. You're like, no, he's one of the good guys. Like it didn't take me long to kind of make that jump,
Well, Vader, that's because Sean Vader keeps screwing him too. He keeps like taking more and more, and he thought, this is a means to an end, and that's a great scene. He's like, I've just made a deal that'll keep the Empire out of here forever. They open the door, and Vader's at like this banquet table. That's great. That's it. Like one of the only two scenes that Han Solo actually has with Vader. Yeah, that's the only time that's their first face to face.
Yeah,
and that's great. Like Han Solo's first instinct is just pull that blaster and start firing off shots, and Vader's just like pew pew pew.
I mean, you wonder what went on at that dinner when the door shut.
Yeah,
like I would have loved to just have a little bit of dialogue of like what's that about?
Well, it can't be any worse than what would come because Vader was still in his torture mode.
Yeah.
Right. He loves to torture. He loves to put people on things and put needles towards them, which I love. Again, like Vader, the body count for Vader in this too. Like,
oh man, and the way they do it.
Like you go in too early, you're dead. You do this, you're dead. You didn't find Solo got away, you're dead. He's clearing the ranks. He must have a stack of resumes on his desk because he just needs to keep hiring people.
It's interesting. The first guy that he kills, the guy that is hesitating, he kind of gives a look to the other guy, like almost like he's in on the fact that he wants the rebels to succeed or something. Like I noticed that the guy with the mustache that he kills first, he gives him a look like, like he wants the rebels to succeed. It was weird. It was like a moment between the two of them. I don't know if I'm reading into it too much.
Well, he seemed like he was just like more like, well, I'm kind of like the decision maker. Like,
totally.
This is my thing. It's like,
right.
Not when Vader's standing behind you. You're not really, that's almost like Bane. Like, do you feel in charge?
I know.
I don't know. I just noticed it. It's probably nothing. Yeah.
And in the first movie, you have Grand Moff Tarkin, who's like above Vader's like this underdog. Now Vader's like just, and you see
full on.
Nobody's holding him back. Because in the first one, when he was like choking that guy, he's like, "All right, I'll let him go."
Vader, release him.
Now he's just
there's no one to say that. It's just like Vader. No, I'm not releasing.
And the other guy, it's like through the screen. He doesn't even have to be in front of him. He's like in the monitor, and he's still choking the guy.
That's God. I love that scene. I love
Force, right?
And you see Vader without his cape there, like sitting in the chair, and he turns around, and he's just like, Oh, the menace in his voice. It's just so great.
Yeah, they said that they show him in that chamber a couple times. Supposedly, what that chamber is, it's some type of compression thing where, for short amounts of time, and we do get to see that that he can exist outside of his armor for short amounts of time in that compression.
Like his back to tank almost.
Yeah, almost like a like his own high pressure that he can kind of be out pain free, but. We get to see the back of his creepy head, right? The guy comes in and is like, it's almost like watching someone getting dressed. He's like, oh crap. I can't.
Yeah.
He's like, why? He's trying to like look away. He's like, I don't want to see that. I don't think I want to see that. Yeah. Am I going to, was I naughty? Apology accepted. And the guy's body falls on the floor. It's like, Jesus Christ, this guy's like, he's like the boss from hell. There had to be no HR.
It's like
in the Empire, there was no human resources person to call.
It's like two things were certain in this movie. Vader was going to kill one of those guys, like he does it 3 times, and the Millennium Falcon's not going to start. Like it's like, they went to the well many times with those two, ideas.
But and that's why Vader. I think I said it in the Star Wars episode. Vader's my favorite character because he's just. This is a dark film, so he gets to really be dark.
He's the best.
And his pursuit of Luke Skywalker, he parcels out the pursuit, because he parcels out, Han Solo to the bounty hunters because he's got to also concentrate on his pursuit of Skywalker. And nothing. He's not suffering any fools. Nothing is getting in the way. He's obsessed. He's like, if you fuck up, you're gonna die. Like that's it. That's the bottom line. I think the one guy got one pass, like the guy that kind of made it to the end almost. There is one continuity thing. I wrote it down. Luke decides to leave. He has a vision of his friends in peril on Dagobah as he's developing his skills. I have to leave. I gotta go. And they're like, no, don't go. You're not ready. If you face him, you're going to do it alone. I can't help you, which is just a shitty thing to say. Like Obi-Wan, like you can't Force Ghost help him.
Right.
So Luke leaves and Yoda is talking to Obi-Wan, right? And Obi-Wan says, that boy is our last hope. And Yoda says, no, there is another. Shouldn't that conversation have been reversed? Because Obi-Wan was at the birth of the other, and he knows there is another.
Right.
How does Yoda know? I'm like, no. Knowing what we know now, Obi-Wan held the babies in his hand. He knows there's another.
I think they both knew.
And in Nick, I'll hand it to you, but in light of the Obi-Wan series, with the whole adventure with little Leia.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They know Leia exists. They know Leia's a Skywalker. They might even know that she's Force sensitive. But I think the point is that she's not. She's gone a different path in her life, right? She's the general, or she will be a general, and she's not going to be a Jedi. Is I think the point. And they need a Jedi to battle the Sith. And Luke was the one. And even though he started late, I think they were like, well, okay, it looks like this is the time. I don't think they thought. I don't think Obi-Wan thinks that. He thinks if Luke fails, that's it. But Yoda's like, look, maybe we're gonna have to go to Leia.
Go to the bench.
Don't you find that a little manipulative though? Like when you consider, like even Obi-Wan would, if you go back to the first movie, with Luke, it's like he kind of just almost like keeps insisting that you need to, learn the Force, and Luke doesn't even know what the hell he's talking about. Like, he has no idea what he's getting himself into. Yeah. There's sort of the naivete there, but like Obi-Wan just keeps insisting. Do you think, and now it's like, as you pointed out, like, Leia could be the next, but were they really destined to become Jedi is the question.
As far as Obi-Wan was concerned, right. He don't care about the destiny.
I find that
make it happen.
So I find that that's a little like, these guys are like, you need to confront Vader. You need to kill your father in order to become a Jedi. It's like, and of course we learn that this is not the way of the Jedi. So I feel, it really comes into that part of the story, like really, really grand. Like you go back and with the Clone Wars and all that stuff, and you find out what really went down. Now it all makes sense. Some of the odd things that they did say in these films. So it's like, I love that. I love the kind of how they went back and had to kind of make a point made there and just, to
retcon,
retcon it and tell that part of the story. Yeah. So
let's talk about. We got to talk about Carrie Fisher in this movie because Sean, damsel in distress in the first film, spunky.
Yeah.
But I think that Leia has a really important arc, and again, especially at that time in the 80s, a strong female lead, especially someone who is as diminutive as her in stature.
Yeah.
She, we catch up with her in Empire, and she's already in charge of forces. She's giving orders. She's kind of like in control and in command, and she really kind of steps. They didn't leave her behind, I think, is the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
They kind of gave her, as much.
Yeah, she's definitely a central, part of this story, and a strong character, strong woman, a good, grade off of Harrison Ford. Their love affair, their love. I don't want to say love hate, but they're the games they play with each other. She's got some of the great lines. You're a scruffy nerf herder or whatever she calls him. Scruffy, not scruffy. Who are you calling scruffy? But I am a nerf herder, whatever the heck that is. And, I'd rather kiss a Wookiee. Like, I love that. I love that part. It's just very funny. She's funny. She's quick. And she's insightful. She has good instincts as well. And, I think they gave her a lot in this movie.
Yeah, kind of the voice of reason in everything, right? She sees through the bullshit of Lando. She's kind of doubtful about going into the asteroid. So she's almost kind of like it seems like with all this crazy stuff going on with Luke going off, and she's kind of like the center and almost like the voice of reason throughout.
Yeah, I mean she's one of the greatest characters, because you have these princesses in these kind of fantasy stories and damsels in distress, like you all use that phrase. And Lucas, even in the first movie, you think that's the kind of character she is, but she grabs the ray gun and she's shooting and she's pushing the Wookiee aside. And, So in this one, she's that general. There's that scene where, they're about to leave Hoth and she's talking to the troops basically. And she's like, here's what we're going to do. And apparently Carrie Fisher had like massive anxiety to do that scene. So the fact that she was able to portray that so well, you give, Erwin Kirshner credit for pulling that out of her, but also her. I mean, she, like you say, she's small in stature, and yet you believe that she was this general and the troops would follow her to their deaths,
Yeah, she's got that gravitas, and God, we miss Carrie Fisher. I mean, she's just like,
who knows what they could have done with that last movie.
She's in her Hoth outfit.
Yeah,
her Hoth outfit with her backpack and everything. I think it's time for our new segment. I think it's time to test these gentlemen with 3 lies and a truth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read 4 statements. Don't say anything. I'll read 4 statements. 3 of them are lies. 1 of them is true. And we will go around the panel. Each one of you gentlemen will take a crack at it individually, and then we will reveal. So Eric's kind of like snarling. Pressure. He's like, what? It's like, what?
The pressure.
No Googling, right?
No
Googling.
Hands
no
free.
Time for Googling.
Dude,
so I'm going to read
that Obi-Wan scene where he just lifts his hands up.
That's it. I'm gonna read 4 statements. 3 of them are lies, and only 1 is true. So don't say anything, and we'll go around. So let me get these 3 out. We'll wait for Mr. Sean Grady. He's all set. He is ready. He is the intent. And Sean is a Jeopardy maven too. So I think this will be right up his alley. So here we go. 3 lies and a truth.
Put a ton of pressure on me, Dean. Thank you very much.
Of course. Well, I have to. That's how I'm going to get to you. Mind game. So I'm going to read the 4 statements. Don't say anything, and then we'll go. First statement, A. If Mark Hamill could not return after his car accident, John Ritter was approached to possibly replace him as Luke Skywalker. B. Mel Blanc was originally offered the voice of Yoda, but he turned it down. C. Harrison Ford did the voiceover for the original Empire Strikes Back movie trailer. And D. Bosk, the bounty hunter's costume, has made appearances in other films. It first appeared in the film Fantastic Voyage from 1966. So I'm going to go ahead and read them again. A. If Mark Hamill could not return after his car accident, John Ritter was approached to possibly replace him as Luke Skywalker. B. Mel Blanc was originally offered the voice of Yoda, but he turned it down. C. Harrison Ford did the voice of the original in the original Empire Strikes Back trailer. He did the original voiceover. D. Bosk's costume first appeared in the film Fantastic Voyage from 1966.
Man.
Let's go with Nick. Since
Those are
you
good
said
ones.
something, see, I love being the teacher now. I get to call on you, Nick. You ain't calling on anybody.
You put me in a spot. I know a lot about Star Wars trivia.
Three of these statements.
I have no clue, so I have to see what would be the best.
Okay, 3 of these statements are false. One of them is true. Well, we're going to save Sean for last
one. The last one sounds like it could be true, but I have never heard it. So I'm going to say the second one about the.
Mel Blanc was originally offered the voice of Yoda, but he turned it down.
I know that sounds stupid, but that's where I'm going with.
Okay, so Mel Blanc was originally offered the voice of Yoda, but turned it down. Okay, Eric.
These are all good, by the way.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes.
But you want me to roll through them again, or you got it? Okay.
I'm gonna go with C.
C. Harrison Ford did the voiceover for the original Empire Strikes Back movie trailer. That's the one you're going with?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got B. Nick is saying that Mel Blanc was offered the voice, but he turned it down. Eric is saying Harrison Ford did the voiceover for the original Empire Strikes Back movie trailer. Sean Grady.
Let me hear the other two. A again.
A. If Mark Hamill could not return after his car accident, John Ritter was approached to possibly replace him as Luke Skywalker.
It's A.
And D. Lusk's costume first appeared in the film Fantastic Voyage from 1966.
A.
So we've got A. So Sean is saying A. Nick is saying B. And Eric is saying C. This is the first time we've had a spread. Usually everyone zeroes in on one. Okay. The first lie. Lusk's costume first appeared in the film Fantastic Voyage from 1966. It actually appeared in Doctor Who.
Interesting.
It actually that costume has made multiple.
Wait a minute. This is which one is true or which one is the lie?
Which one is the truth?
Oh, okay. Right.
3 lies and a truth, right?
I always do. Okay,
because you want to chart. You've got 3 shots to change it if you want to.
He already knows that the 4th one's wrong now. So
he does.
I blew it somehow.
Okay.
I blew the game, so I deserve my punishment, which is by choice. And
yeah, you're an honorable.
Hey, but you're an honorable man. Be right though.
No,
that's true.
Okay,
that's true.
Okay, yeah.
Another lie. Mel Blanc was originally offered the voice role of Yoda, but he turned it down. Actually, Jim Henson was offered to do it, but he's like, I'm doing the Great Muppet Caper. I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
That leaves us 2 choices. A, if Mark Hamill could not return after his car accident, John Ritter was approached to possibly replace him as Luke Skywalker, or Harrison Ford did the voiceover for the original Empire Strikes Back movie trailer. One of these is true. One of them is false.
Eric,
what do you want? You want the truth or you want the lie?
I know what it is.
You want the truth?
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that Harrison Ford did the voiceover for the original Empire Strikes Back movie trailer, and he did it so good that George Lucas didn't even know it was him.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know it was him.
Go check. It's on YouTube. He totally hams it up. He totally is like movie trailer guy.
That's great.
I thought John Ritter would be an interesting choice to replace Mark Hamill.
But he said he was going to kill off Skywalker. If Mark Hamill had died in that car accident, he was going to kill him off.
And he wasn't going to recast. He was going to get a new character. That's what I heard. That
sometimes you find out new information.
So I did not pay attention to the rules because I play it a different way with I do it sometimes with my students. I say,
well, you know what?
You're
in this class, Sean.
Yeah. So.
Well done. Congratulations.
Pay attention. Yeah.
You're gonna write on the board 50 times.
What does Eric get for
You're gonna write John. You're gonna write John.
Teachers are terrible at following directions sometimes.
You're gonna write John Ritter is the best. 100. John Ritter is the best 100 times on the chalkboard.
Fair enough.
Just like Bart Simpson.
I've earned it.
All right. So Eric.
So what's my prize? I get to stay on my couch and
right now you're
here and for the next episode.
he gets to retain his. He's actually been on a hot streak. He duffed the first one. Maybe he was nervous. After that, he's been pretty steady Eddie. Actually, he missed the Van Halen one. I think he's 2 for 2. I
have to admit this one was. These were good.
Those are good.
Especially the Bosk one.
Yeah.
But I do remember it wasn't Fantastic Voyage.
Yeah, it's been in a couple of films actually. That costume is kind of recycled a few times.
Yeah.
But it was in Doctor Who from the 60s. I forget what one it was, but cool. That's 3 lies and a truth. So
Very nice.
Nick, come on, Mel Blanc, you fell for that,
dude. Was he even alive at that?
Yes, of course.
Yes, he was.
Wow.
Oh, man. Now, I'm
Yes,
starting
he
to
was.
doubt every.
He's not like Walt Disney. He wasn't
know.
like Walt Disney's age. He was around that back then.
He would have done an interesting job,
It
though.
wasn't even alive.
He was still doing Bugs Bunny in 80. He was still doing that kind of stuff. So
Good one.
Guys like the late 80s.
yeah,
Very good.
Three lies and the truth. Thank you all for playing, and of course, make sure you come back for each and every episode. We'll have more. It gets more and more difficult because Eric, I'm always thinking of when I'm doing these. I'm thinking of Eric because I'm trying to outthink him because I know he knows a lot of this stuff and he knows a lot of the same stuff I do, and we have similar kind of things. So I'm like, I gotta throw some roadblocks up and try and I got to throw some asteroids his way. So let's close out with favorite scenes like we do.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's literally a lot to chew Baka on.
He looks the best in all of them, right?
There's a lot to chew Baka on.
Oh, absolutely. I always said that.
Best in Empire
in this one.
than in any of the others.
There he is. He's very stressed out because he's got to deal with kind of fixing the Falcon and then the whole thing with C-3PO. He's fighting the Ugnaughts, right? And they're tossing the helmet around. And the
life that he has for Han Solo. Like, I think at this point he feels like he's never going to see him again. He's dead, and he blew it. He could have saved him,
Yeah, because after he gets tortured, Chewie, is kind of taking care of him.
Yeah.
And then when he gets, he waylays a couple of stormtroopers. He tosses them to their death. Right, he chucks a couple of stormtroopers off the ledge there. So,
but then
he was trying. You know what, Nick? He was trying to catch up to Vader's body count.
Yeah,
like in the last scene, he's like, Vader's got like 3. Yeah. I got to see if I can catch up. And Chewie threw a couple off. Try to even out the Rebels' score versus the Imperials versus how many people they kill.
I also like the way he looked because you don't see it in any of the other films, but he's got a tremendous amount of gray hair.
Yeah,
in this one, it shows his age.
It just looks realistic.
And the hair is kind of coming down. Also, it's kind of like
more natural.
It's not. It's not like kind of groomed. So yeah. All right, Nick. What favorite scene? What do you got? Thank you guys for throwing some love to Chewie, by the way.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I was going to go with Yoda with the, that great line about
Y-O-D-A, Yoda.
No, do or do not. There
is no try.
There is no try.
I used to say that to people that used to work for me. Like, I'm going to try and get here on time. I'm like, do or do not. There is no try.
That whole scene is great because then it's like I don't believe, that's why you fail. I love that. But now that you mentioned Chewbacca and the life debt, when Han, that's my favorite scene is that when Han is gonna become in the carbonite, right? When he goes to Chewie, he's like, take care of Leia. I think that was his way where he's like, I'm dying. This is it. I'm dead. Mm-hmm. And I know I saved your life and you always wanted to save mine and you're not going to do it, but it's okay. Just take care of Leia. That's the subtext I get from that scene. And he knows, and I think seeing Chewbacca, that performance was fantastic, because it's just grunting and everything. But this was his best movie out of all of them. And I wish in Return of the Jedi, they had done the scene on his home planet because it would have been that epic battle. But
he got his day in the sun with the holiday special. Grandpa with no teeth. They kind of burned that bridge, Nick. I don't think they're going to go back there.
It was Life Day, right? Was that the holiday? He had
walking with the candles and the robes in the kitchen.
Yeah. And Carrie Fisher singing.
Yeah. All right, Sean. What do you got?
I love the Hoth scene, the snow speeders with I like Wedge. I love Wedge. He doesn't get enough. He ropes the AT-AT down, and then Luke goes up, cuts the guts out, throw it. I always love the snow speeder and the scene with the AT-ATs. I love the Hoth. That's my favorite part of the movie because it's a lot of action and a lot of hope and
I got to say one thing: don't get close to Luke Skywalker because if you're friends with Luke, they all die, man. The Biggs, Dak, even Han,
I mean, and for Christ's sake, Dak was right behind Luke. He took the shot that Luke should have took.
Yeah,
he was like a human shield behind him.
Yeah,
it's like a meat shield.
Yeah. It's true. You have a high mortality rate if you're a friend of Luke's. Yeah. No question.
Yeah, it's not looking good. And then Luke ended up crashing anyway, so he probably would have killed. He probably would have died in the accident. He probably would have gotten thrown.
Yeah.
So it wasn't looking. Dak was like, I think his name stands for destined to fail or something like that. But I don't know what.
Oh, and by the way, Rogue, the actor that played Rogue 2 was in Highlander. He was the guy, 6-inch, sword in my gut, the commando in the alley. Like,
yep.
That's Rogue 2.
John Ratzenberger was in this too, but they dubbed his voice.
Yeah,
he wasn't wearing his mail. He wasn't wearing his. Yeah, they dubbed him in. He wasn't wearing his mailman outfit though. He wasn't in Cliff Clavin.
He did Princess Leia.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. He did a whole monologue about Indiana Jones on Cheers once about how he had to do all these things. Indy. So, Eric, what do you got for?
I could just picture it like just going on and on. Oh,
I gotta find it. I'll send it to you guys. He did a whole monologue about Indiana Jones sitting at the bar with
I have
Norm.
to see that. I think I probably said it before, but I think of course, I love the duel is by far the best duel in all of Star Wars, and it's still not much of a duel,
right?
But it's got tension. It tells you the story, just the whole way it's laid out from beginning to end is just incredible. Of course, they've improved on the sword fighting as you see, as they went along. But to this day, I still think that it's the best, the most dramatic.
Yeah.
And but my favorite scene, of course, is when they come and rescue Luke from. And I just love that scene where he reaches out to Leia because Ben's not answering. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me?
Leave a message."
And he's just, and to his word, he's like, "I can't help you. You have to deal with this." So that was a tough moment to see that as a kid, like younger, watching that. You're like, man, he did him dirty,
Yeah.
But yeah, when he reaches out to Leia. That's a beautiful scene. I always tear up with that, and the look on her face, and then and she's like, "Chewie, just do it," and he's like, "All right," And when that shot of the Falcon just going like through the clouds and that beautiful like colors right there in the film, and we have to point out too that the Falcon is definitely a formidable.
It's a beautiful ship
character in this movie. Yes. You really get to see everything about her inside and out.
Yep.
Yeah.
The full scale model of her, like they really built the ship. Like Jedi, it's just a matte painting, which I hated. They didn't want to go back and read, but you actually see the actors interacting when you see shots from outside. I love that. I love the fact that the Falcon itself is a
character.
It's a living being. Oddly enough, in the beginning of the film, we get Luke Skywalker hanging upside down using his Force powers. At the end of the film, we get Luke Skywalker hanging upside down using his Force powers.
Mm-hmm.
Force powers. So, can anybody, before I get to my favorite scene, can anybody tell me what Lucas's obsession is with cutting hands and cutting limbs?
Every movie.
Is there something I'm missing? Because the Wampa, Obi-Wan cutting, like what is Nick? Is there some mythological or historical significance to? Because he loves doing it. He loves doing it.
I mean, you do it twice.
Is it supposed to be like? It's supposed to be like.
You've done it so many times, it's intentional. It's like my circle theory for the first movie.
Is it supposed to be emasculating? No, I'm serious. Is it supposed to? I don't know. I don't know what the representation is. I never bothered to look it up.
I mean, obviously, the parallel with Vader losing all his body parts and he's more machine than man.
Mm-hmm.
But it's other characters too. It's like in the first movie they chop off the arm in Mos Eisley Cantina, right?
And Eric mentioned Highlander. I guess Dooku thought he was in Highlander. He got he got the double slice whammy.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever talked about it, but it's obviously intentional, and he's done it multiple times. It's like his thing.
Darth Maul got chopped in half, and he. And he still comes back to life. Nobody dies anymore in Star Wars. That's the thing, too.
Yeah, supposedly Mace Windu, they're going to do something with him. He flew out across Coruscant and landed on the street and then walked away and got a hot dog.
I always knew he would survive, though. When they never show the body, they're coming back.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. Anyway, my favorite scene, I'm going to go with Nick. but it's a specific shot. It's the end when Han Solo is capped before he goes into the carbonite, and there's like a 3/4 high scene, and you just get to see all the beautiful lighting of the carbon freezing area. It's got that red lighting. It's very moody. Vader is like, everybody's there. Vader is standing there. Boba Fett's there. The stormtroopers are there, and then on the other side is Han and Leia, and Chewbacca and 3PO. Just kind of seeing like that overall scene where they're all just kind of there. They're not fighting. Like the fight, the fighting is done at this point. They're captured, So it's kind of but just the way it's staged and the way it's lit, it just it looked gorgeous. I was like watching. I'm like, oh man, it just looks so beautiful. Like the color scheme, and the stuff in Cloud City, even the original stuff, Sean, even the way it looked originally, I'm like, I got no problem with the colors and the clouds and everything looked gorgeous. I'm like, it didn't really need to. Yeah, it didn't really need to. And the shot of Boba Fett pulling away just against that skyline also. When Chewbacca and Leia get a couple of shots off at him, and he flies away. It's like,
or even the moment where he says, put Captain Solo in the cargo hold. It's like you see the whole ship laid out and that pink sky in the background.
Yeah, it just looks
so dramatic. Yeah. He doesn't need to do anything. It's just cool.
Yeah. You got to put some motors in that, and make it into a drone and fly it around.
Yeah. I think Frozen Han Solo is inside.
Uh oh. Has he been in there since 1980?
Yeah, he's here.
There he is.
Yeah. And the fact that Han Solo survived for so long, that sets up the Mandalorian. When this has become like a thing now, where all the
they go back.
It's like using it. They're like, okay,
it's like, oh wow, we found a new way to capture people. Just encase them in this slop.
And I just want to say one last thing: is the special edition that it's gotten such bad, and rightfully so. But in this movie, we talked about this pre-show with Eric and Sean. It's like, I think this is the most beautiful, and it really works. Watching it, it's just like I don't have any objection to what I personally don't have. I mean, even replacing the Emperor. I mean, the original, he's got like chimpanzee eyes or whatever. I was like, no,
that's actually a woman.
Yeah, it's a woman.
Yeah, and it's Clive Revel's voice. He's a famous.
So this works. I watching this, I'm not distracted by the changes. I know thumbs down from you, but I'm like, for me, I'm not distracted by any. This is like perfect. It looks good.
You know what, Nick,
and I like it.
I
know you're gonna kick me out again.
You're just not a Star Wars fan. I think. I just don't think you're really a Star Wars fan. You're not really cut out for this type of material. This isn't your thing.
I know.
I just don't understand how you could justify paying an actor, or in this case an actress, and then having the voice actor come in and then just totally replace them with somebody else.
That's the crazy world of George Lucas.
Yeah, but how do you? I mean,
his movies, man. After watching it, he must have been just so annoyed. He's like, "Gosh darn it." Hey,
James Earl Jones wasn't even credited in original because he thought he was special effects.
Yeah, he said don't bother. Yeah, he said don't credit me. I'm not an actor. I'm part of like the landscape. Even just a lot of these people. Anthony Daniels didn't want to come back. David Prowse didn't want to come back. He's like, Anthony Daniels like, I'm in this suit and people don't know anything. David Prowse like, what's the point? And Lucas is like, we'll get someone else. He's like, oh, forget it, I'll do it.
Once they saw the paycheck, they took it.
It's like, so, they're available on Disney Plus, and like Eric says, which again, if they keep they could be changing stuff, and we don't even know it, and they could be changing the fabric of the story, and if we don't go watch it again,
physical media, I support
physical media. Now, here's one last tidbit. I'm going to leave this with you. I just found this out. Star Wars. Well, the original Star Wars was in, the Library of Congress. They want to, induct films, say this is a significantly important film. So Star Wars deserves to be in the Library of Congress. To this date, Lucas has not provided a print of the film because the Library of Congress needs to have the original print.
Right.
That is what is originally thing, and he has not provided a print of Star Wars to the Library of Congress. That's how out of control this is.
Wow.
And the Library of Congress, the most prestigious thing to be a part of, like film history,
Yeah.
And we want to. This film needs to be is historically and culturally important. And you need to, we need the original, print as it was. That's what is culturally significant.
He's a stubborn man.
He not, and it was inducted like decades ago, and he has not provided a print.
He didn't do any directing afterwards because he got kicked out of the guild because he refused to.
Was it Howard the Duck?
No, he didn't want to have credits beforehand. Like when it was his name, it's one thing, but Erwin Kershner, he didn't want to put his name beforehand. Like he was like, so that was it. He dropped out of the Directors Guild, out of the
right.
Yeah. So he wasn't even allowed to make any films afterwards, technically.
Crazy or ahead of his time? We'll have to see.
A little stubborn. Yeah. But it's his movie.
There's that video of you ever see that video of the people, the guy in CVS, he's standing in front of a CVS or something, and he's filming a video, and George Lucas is walking behind him, and George Lucas thinks that the guy wants his autograph, and he doesn't even know who he is.
Yes.
You ever see that, Sean? You ever see that video?
No.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's like George Lucas just like in Pasadena or something, like out in California with his plaid shirt and his white New Balance sneakers and his jeans on. And the guy's like making a video, like a selfie video, and George Lucas is walking in the back, and he kind of stops, like, "Oh, I'm about to be recognized." And the guy's like, "Whatever," And then there's the one of George Lucas sitting in the mall eating like the Chinese food in the mall with the Diet Coke and the newspaper. I mean, the guy.
But isn't that how we would be if we were billionaires like him? Now
I wouldn't be in the mall. I would buy the mall.
He is now officially the richest celebrity, I think.
No, really?
Yeah.
He sold when he sold it. Yeah, he made all.
He sold it and immediately regretted it, right? He sold it and was like, "Oh, well, they shouldn't have done this. They shouldn't have done that." And it's
because he thought they were going to ask him, but they were kind of like, "It's ours now. Bye bye."
Yeah. When I buy a car from someone, I don't call them 3 years later and say, "Oh, you know what? What about the car? What should I do about it? It's mine now." He was like, call somebody.
He was like, "Here's my outlines for the next trilogy," and they're like, "Great, goodbye. We got our own."
File it. If that was me, if I was Disney, I'd say, "Well, what about that Library of Congress thing? When are you going to get that straightened out?" Do that, and then we'll
I kind of feel bad.
Do you honestly believe Lucas and when he says that an original print does not exist?
No,
I think he has it.
I think that's bullshit.
John, what do you think? They're somewhere, right?
How do you not have an original print of the movie that changed your whole life?
I mean,
since he's a preservationist, just like Coppola.
I mean, how do you explain like the footage that they used in Rogue One, right? That those scenes that we never saw before of characters, like in the film. If the original print doesn't exist, you would think that there's obviously deleted scenes in a vault. Why would you not have the entire film as it was originally presented?
Well, here
and any sense to me.
And here's what happened. Yeah. I mean, he's friends with Scorsese, who was a movie preservationist.
Yeah,
George Lucas would be like fucking Billy Batts in Goodfellas. They'd be De Niro and Pesci would be kicking the shit out of him on the floor. They'd be putting the heel in his head. That just put Lucas on the floor. That's Lucas if he doesn't have an original print.
Now go get your original fucking print.
Mutt.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Sorry I ruined your floor.
Yeah.
No, Tommy, no.
Dented my shoes.
That would be Lucas. He'd have to explain it to Scorsese. So anyway, I'm right though, Nick, right?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Like Scorsese is like a film purist. So how do you go to your friends and even probably Coppola? These guys are all like purists. And
I believe he has it, and I believe his friends have it. I bet you Spielberg has a print of it in his file somewhere.
Yeah.
But
absolutely. And why not give the fans let us have the choice at least?
Yeah.
That I agree with. But again, it's his movie. So if he thinks if future generations wants to go to Library of Congress, he wants them to see the version that he feels is the final version. So
but he leaves American Graffiti with us.
I like American Graffiti.
I know. One last tidbit. I'll let you guys go.
I like it too.
I do too. I'm just.
I saw it. I don't remember anything about it.
Oh really? Oh, it's a good film. Boba Fett, the character Boba Fett. They say that his name actually came from Harrison Ford's character Bob Falfa. Right? That was his. Bob Falfa is Harrison Ford's character in American Graffiti.
Interesting.
And kind of tweaked it from Bob Falfa to Boba Fett. Interesting. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. We've taken enough time of our ramblings and fan theories about Goodfellas and George Lucas getting, getting done dirty like Billy Bats, Now go home and get your original print. So that's going to do it. If you've made it this far and you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. That'll do us a big favor. Plus, it does you a favor because you get notified when new episodes drop. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast provider, go ahead and follow us as well. That helps. Leave a review. That helps as well. It kind of lifts us up in the search. Makes it easy for other people to find us. So hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. We will gather in probably 5 to 7 to 10 years, and we'll do Return of the Jedi. At this pace, it'll be 2079 before we even think about touching the prequels. So, but we may or may not get to it. Sean's kids, Eric's kids, and Nick's kids will be the inheritors of the podcast, and they'll talk about it. We'll leave the prequels and the sequel trilogies to them. We don't want to touch that. So, but that's going to do it as usual for Sean Grady. Check him out. Drama from the Past on Facebook. We'll drop a show link in the show notes. Of course, Mr. Nick Leshi, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Sean, all those toys, you got to get like a safety deposit box for those things.
And now I got to clean up.
Pick up your toys.
My toys.
Nick Leshi, City of Kick blog. We're going to drop a link in the show notes as well, so you can check that out. Go check that out. We ask if you would, please. And, of course, Eric and I will be in our seats. He'll be on his comfy couch. I'll be in my green IKEA chair. And we will wait until we see you the next time. So for Sean, for Nick, and for Eric, this has been Dean, asking you to please be kind and rewind the original version. Catch you later.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.